Hi, everyone. We're just going to give it another 60 seconds, maybe, give everyone a chance to join in, and we'll get started. Oh, wow, we have loads of people coming in. We might not need to wait for another 60 seconds. All right, I'm going to give it 30 more seconds. Ash style, 28 more seconds. Oops. All right, I think we can get started. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. This is the second part of our webinar series focused around automation in exec search. The first part of this webinar series, we talked about the current state of the industry in exec search based on our grid surveys. We talked about some of the challenges that we've been hearing in the executive search market and where automation could help, as well as some key areas of focus where we're seeing early adopters investing when it comes to their automation strategy as well. Now, in the second part today, we'll be exploring automation in action. We'll show you how easy it is to create and to deploy these automations to solve some of the challenges that we're facing in the market today. Quick round of housekeeping items. This session will be recorded and shared with everyone after in the next 24 to 48 hours. Everyone will be on mute throughout the entirety of the session, but we do have a Q&A panel. I encourage you to use it, ask as many questions as you can. We'll aim to answer all, if not most of them. And if time doesn't allow us to answer all the questions, of course, we'll make sure to follow up with you guys after. So, quick round of introductions. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Eric. I look after the automation and AI strategy over at Bullhorn for all things, both on the recruitment side as well as on the executive search side of the business. I am joined today by Angela and Rich. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. Angela, do you want to introduce yourself next?
Hi, hello. Excited to be on here today. My name's Angela Pitts. I work on the North American team, and I'll be running through some of your scenarios today. So we've had some of the automation capabilities for a while over on our Bullhorn native side, and very excited to start bringing them into the Invenius side of the business.
Thanks, Angela. Rich?
Great. Thank you, Angela. Hello, everybody. My name is Richard Watson. I lead the account management team at Invenius. Really looking forward to today's session.
Thanks, Rich. Okay, so here's what we'll cover today. We'll do a quick recap on the trends and insights from the previous webinar series. For those of you who weren't able to join the first webinar, we'll spend a few minutes just to make sure we're all on the same level of understanding as to where we are today, what the challenges are, and where automation can help. But the majority of this session, we will spend very much in product, where Angela will show us how we can create and deploy these automations based on the popular use cases we've been hearing from the early adopters in the industry. And towards the end, of course, we've dedicated a few minutes, 5 to 10 minutes for Q&A to answer the questions that may come in. And with that being said, we're going to head over to the 23 key trends and insights recap, and I'll let Richard take it over from here.
Great, thanks, Eric. So yeah, we'll just do a quick recap of some of the industry themes and trends that we looked at in the previous webinar. Now, these came from our annual GRID survey, which stands for Global Recruitment Insights and Data, where we survey I think over 2,000 firms from the wider staffing market, but also from executive search for this. So what were the major themes that came out of this year's survey? Well, there are some headwinds. High inflation and some fairly aggressive interest rates rises after years of low rates means that we see a little turbulence ahead. I don't think that comes as any surprise to anybody. We're also still hearing that great candidates are hard to find. So we are seeing some signs of a softening in the hiring market, and that clients are being a little bit more selective in their hiring plans. Next slide, Eric, please. Right. However, it's not all doom and gloom. Despite the economic backdrop, this was quite striking. Almost 2/3 of search firms are anticipating revenue growth in 2023, which is really encouraging to hear. How are they planning to get there? Let's have a look on the next slide. So let's just take a look at the top 3 business priorities being reported back to us for 2023. The number 1 is winning new clients. That's actually overtaken talent acquisition and as the number 1 priority for search firms. So business development, we're sure, is going to be key to that. Digital transformation has also leapfrogged talent acquisition into the number 2 spot. Our search firms want to drive efficiencies and speed up search delivery by digitizing the way they deliver those services. And finally, a perennial favorite, candidate acquisition is the number 3 priority. The race for talent is clearly still on, and search firms need to work harder than ever to maintain the talent networks. So how can we help? Well, I'm going to hand it back over to Eric for a recap of how we see automation as key to these initiatives.
Thanks, Rich. Now, these priorities, these challenges that we're seeing in the market today are very closely aligned with what we refer to as the 3 pillars of automation, the 3 key areas of focus that you should be thinking of whenever you are building your automation strategy. And it really does come down to those things. The first one is productivity, right? How can you ensure that the right things are happening at the right time in the business? Whether you're automating certain elements of your process or you're just reminding your team of the important actions they should be doing, where automation should not be involved. And from an engagement perspective, it's about building a high level of standardized communication so that you can truly communicate with scale and ensure you're sending the right message at the right time to your target audiences, from marketing campaigns to just the transactional communication that might happen throughout in process. And from a data health perspective, how do you automate your way into a clean and healthy database of both candidates and clients, and essentially transform Invenias into a reliable source of truth for everyone that uses it today, so they can rely more on what they already have and less on those external sources. All these areas of focus are connected to each other. They complement each other in different ways, as you will see when we go into product and what Angela will show us. Now, before I hand it over to Angela, I want you guys to remember this little line of text, this little logic. This is the principle behind every automation that you will see today. It all operates on the principle, if this, then that. This being the trigger, an action that might have happened on the Invenias platform, then that being all the actions that automation can perform in the background for us. So to give you a couple of very quick examples, if this being, let's say, a candidate's progress status has been changed from target candidate to shortlist, then that could be an automated internal notification that goes out to the relevant team members in Invenias, and they can take over from there. Or let's say that a client hasn't been spoken to in over 90 days. That's our trigger point. Then that being, let's notify the consultant to pick up the phone and call them so they can nurture that relationship instead of potentially putting that customer at risk. So a couple of very quick examples. I am now going to stop sharing my screen and I will hand it over to Angela, who will take us through the first example.
Great, thank
Angela,
you, Eric.
over to you.
All right, before we jump in, we're gonna take a look at something that is somewhat familiar to all of you. We'll take a look at Invenias itself, because I want to point out a couple of places that you're going to see some of this data come back into Invenias. All right, so here we have our record for ARI and a couple of things that I'll call out because I'll be referencing this as we're going through some of the examples. But 2 new things that you'll see once you start utilizing the automation. First of all, on the web tab, you're going to see the information that's associated with ARI on the automations that he is part of. So this first thing that you see right there, that 83, it shows that ARI's opened 83 emails. It will also, as we scroll down just a little bit through there too, it'll show us what lists ARI's associated with. And then if we were to dig in to ARI and start looking at these specifically, we can see how ARI is interacting with our automation. So that score of 83%, what that's saying is, and I'm saying percent, but it's not necessarily 83%, but that is his score of how engaged is he on here. Now, ARI, of course, he's very engaged because he participates in everything that we share with him, but we can come in here now, and because we drop a cookie when we're creating these, we drop a cookie on it. So when Ari comes in and he opens the email, we can see that he opened it. You can be alerted right away when Ari opens it. If we add a link, let's say that your firm wants to have him read an article or see something about the firm, clicks on that link, we can see that link. Somebody can be notified as soon as that link is clicked on there. Think about it kind of like your Amazon shopping experience, except in reverse, that we're sending that information back. The other piece on here too is the journal notes. And you'll see 2 journal notes in there from Ari, or about Ari right now. The second one, if you'll go ahead and click on that for me, Richard, click into the second one, that I'll be referencing this one back to, is notice up there where it says owner, it says automation API. We have the ability to write this information back into Invenius. And again, one of the examples will show that. But what's happening here is Ari participated in a survey, and you'll see him participate in this survey here again in a few minutes. But the information from the survey, how Ari answered it, we can put it back into the journal notes for you. We're also going to be able to write that information back into Invenius as well. So these are the 2 places that I wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of with that information. Also, kind of before we jump into, on the last webinar, we had several questions about how things work, which was fantastic. I want to level set a little bit too, that not everyone is going to have the exact same needs or the exact same idea of how they want to use automation. And that is perfect. That's what we want. We're going to give you the tools. You're going to decide how it best works for you. Some of our early adopters, when we were talking to them, they said, hey, we don't want this to go out to everyone, or we don't want every single status to have an internal notification. No problem. The things that we're looking at today, just know that these are examples of ways that we can utilize this. Also, we're just highlighting a few of the use cases. Hopefully there'll be some questions about, other use cases at the end. Hey, can we do this? What we'd really love is for you to have us reach out and do a more customized demo for your firm. And then last but not least, when we get into the admin piece, I really want to stress that you're only going to have a few people that are actually going in and creating these. So think about your admins on the Invenius side. Not everybody is an admin. Not everybody has the ability to go in and create the new fields, the new drop downs in there. It'll be the same way within our automation tool. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. I'll pop over and take screen control here. And first thing that you should see is my email here. All right, so we're gonna look at some of the outputs of this, and while you're looking at this email here too, I want you to think about automation and think about what you're using automation in your daily life for right now, how it's made your life much easier. My favorite piece of automation is my robot vacuum. Love my robot vacuum. I set it up. I know exactly what rooms I want it to clean. I know when I want it to start vacuuming, when I need it to stop vacuuming. There is nothing better than waking up in the morning and seeing vacuum lines throughout my whole living room. There's also places that my robot vacuum does not go. I don't send my robot vacuum into my daughter's room because it's messy and it will suck things up. So we want to make sure that when we're looking at this, again, that lens of, we can use automation the way that it works best for you, the way that it works best for the group as a whole. So with that, here is our first scenario. And Richard, I'll let you talk a little bit about our increasing productivity and speed.
Yeah, sure. Well, we hear a lot about from search firms about how they can really kind of streamline the search process and make sure that researchers, consultants are always doing the right thing at the right time. So there's no gaps in delivery, and that everything runs as smoothly as possible, so that placements take place more quickly. So yeah, that's what this is about, really.
Fantastic. All right, so here's our scenario. You're working through a search, and this could be a researcher, it could be a search partner, but a status changes on there. And in this case, we have a submission status that's changed for Sam Mills for the EVP of marketing. It's been updated. Currently today, in order to know that that status has changed, that you need to go in there, you need to look at that specific search, or you need to go into Sam Mills and see that. With the example that we have here, here's what could happen. As soon as that status changes, that the right person or persons could be notified. And as I come down through here too, notice that we've got some additional information that can be added into this. Now, this could have been sent to Lucy James, who is the owner of this assignment or this search. This could have also been sent to a group of people on here. Now, as you're looking at this too, and you're going, hey, I don't want one-off emails. Fantastic. I don't want one-off emails either. You can have these set up anytime we're showing these notifications. You can have these set up to be a roll-up. So this could be a daily roll-up in which you would see here's all of the status changes for the specific status that you choose. Maybe it's not that they have been added to the shortlist. Maybe that it has been that an interview has been scheduled. Somebody just needs to be notified and be able to take next steps. So what we're doing with this is this sets up this trigger that as soon as they are moved to the shortlist, it triggers the automation. So the next question naturally is, hey, what happens if I move them and I'm like, oop, that's not what I wanted to happen. No problem. You'll see in a few minutes when we get into the admin side that we can set up a wait step. So we can have it wait an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours before this actually kicks into place. Okay. All right. Scenario 2 on here of being able to improve that candidate and client experience. Oh, Richard.
Oh, beg your pardon. Yeah, of course. So it's just about consistently engaging with clients and candidates throughout the search process. Now, increasingly, that's going to mean some form of marketing outreach. And often until now, that's meant relying on third-party email marketing tools, things like MailChimp. And typically, they don't really integrate with Invenius, so that can be a bit of a painful experience. So what if you could work seamlessly from Invenius for that kind of marketing outreach?
Yeah. So this was another question that we had on the last webinar too of, I'm using an outside mail product today. Would I have to continue using that? And kind of the overall answer would be no. You can use simply Invenius now for this. You can use Invenius to do your automated marketing outreach. And again, when I use the word automated too, we're going to come in and look at how do we really tailor this. So let's think about this example. You're at a conference or an industry event and you collect several names and you're putting all of those names into a program. Now, today, when you come back into that and you look at all of the names that are in the program, you have to export those out to another system, send out the emails. And then once those email responses come back in, now, hopefully, somebody is entering those back into Invenius to be able to capture the data in one source of truth. Moving forward, here's what happens. We meet Courtney at an event. We come back, we put information into Invenius about Courtney and add her to a program. Courtney now can be part of a drip marketing campaign. So if you're using a MailChimp or a HubSpot or something else that you're doing drip campaigns, that we can have those drip campaigns running off of the names that are in the program. So here's a sample email. Hey, Courtney, thank you for choosing to partner with us, or whatever messaging you want. Everything that you see here, this is all customized for you. You'll create these templates. So Courtney's got a nice picture in there. Again, maybe we could have a link that we click on to a specific article. But right here, if we have let's talk more, this can drive Courtney into the next step of communication with your firm on there. So lots of different options, but think about that. Think about the efficiency of what that looks like today versus what that could look like. Now, again, too, when you're looking at this and you think, okay, I get a lot of automated emails today that come back from @noreply.com. That's not what happens here. What happens is when we're creating these, you also get to select who this comes from. And then when they reply, who it goes back to. So there's some really good technology that's behind this, that while this part of the task can be automated, we can pull the right human in at the right time for it. All right, and last example on here is data hygiene. The very first thing that we looked at on Ari's record was a survey of, we wanted to know some information about Ari, get some information about, hey, is this your correct email address? Is this where you want us sending this information? So you're going to get the first peek at a little bit into our admin portal in just a minute. But first, here's what this could look like for Ari. So Ari receives an email from you, or Ari receives a text from you. We can do either one of these on here. And right now, of course, Ari's receiving this via email. Ari clicks in, and then there's a landing page that sits behind. So this is our landing page for our Invenius fake client. You'll have it your own landing page, and, you know, hi, Ari, we'd like to make sure we have the correct information for you. We're pulling in the information that we currently have in Ari's record. Hey, Ari, if you've got a new preferred email, enter it here. Ari can enter that email in, which will then either go directly back into Invenius and populate his email. So now we've got a new, better email. All of us have multiple email accounts that we use. Maybe we have one that we prefer the communication to come through. But if Ari says, hey, you know, this is fine, this is the email that I like, great. Next question, what's your preferred number? So we can have some questions that we ask here to get quick bits of information, and that can be written back into Invenius. You saw the first one of, we can write it directly back into the journal note and just have a journal note. Maybe we want someone to reach out to them, or maybe we want that to write into a journal note and we want it to go directly into Invenius too. So there, we're done. Couple of questions that we asked Ari, and now we have that information. This is also the same type of survey question information that we can use for collecting GDPR information on our people within Invenius. Okay, and then when Ari is done, it takes them right back to the landing page. Where do you want Ari to be? And of course, that's going to depend on, you know, what kind of survey is this? Is Ari a candidate? Is Ari a contact? Where do you want him to land to be able to take his next steps on there? Okay, now to the fun part. We're going to jump into the actual tool itself. What's running all of this? How is all of this happening? We want to make sure too that the understanding here is you don't have to go in and build things through development. You don't need coders. As Eric mentioned in the beginning, this is all done with clicks, not code. And I think there was a question, you know, that was asked in the last webinar too about, you know, can we build this ourselves? I'm sure that you could in utilizing the APIs. However, I think that you'll find that this is a very robust offering, and it's already pre-built for you on here, that now you can go in and create your own automations. And here's what it would look like. So if we have our automations group, and again, remember that only certain people are going to have access to coming in to this automation. And let's look at one that we looked at an example of the output. So our progress status update. And we're going to break this down so that you understand how this was created. First of all, we have the enrollment. Who is involved in this automation? We don't want it to come in and pull everybody out of the database. We want to make sure that there is a very select group of people that are receiving this on here. So here it is. Remember, we had candidates that were in the short list. This one's simple. Submission status is shortlisted. Here's all of your other submission statuses that you're going to be able to choose from. So if I didn't want this to be people that were in shortlist, maybe, like I said, I want this to be candidates that are being presented. Great. It's that easy for me to make a change. And then notice up at the top too, that it's also doing the countdown for me. It's letting me know if you choose this criteria, there's 39 candidates in the database that meet this criteria. Then we can continue to build upon that. Do we need a certain date that we want this to run? When I say add condition, you'll be able to go in and look at all of your fields within Invenius to be able to pull this information back in. So when you're building that list, that's your list. Who do you want to be involved in this? The next step is this. I want it to wait an hour. We all do it. Sometimes we move somebody into the wrong submission status and it's like, oops, we certainly don't want an automation to kick off based on that. It's going to wait an hour. Somebody has to be in that submission status for an hour before this is going to kick off. And then the next part is we're going to send an update. You saw this update before come through. It will pull in the person's first name, last name, job title. All of that are now going to be done for you, and you decide when and where you want this sent. Do you want this to be sent a single email notification? Do you want this to be sent in that weekly roll-up? That's going to be all up to you. And then as you come down through, you'll see that this automation keeps running through here. If there were other steps in this automation that we wanted, it's as simple as adding a new step. Do I need to add a wait? Do I need to add a branch? Now, in this particular automation, we wouldn't need to add a branch, but what is a branch? A branch is like the survey that we asked. If they answer a question in a specific way, we're going to take them down one path versus the other. Okay. And then last but not least on here, and again, very high level today, are automation settings. This automation is set to run for an internal notification. But whether we're running these internal or we're sending out messages to external people, we want to decide when should these messages be sent. We don't want them going out at 4 a.m. That's a dead giveaway that it's automation on there. Let's send these out when normal business hours are happening, because then that way, when somebody interacts with it and they need have a response, that response is happening. We've got our set to go out during a normal work week of Monday through Friday, 9:30 to 4:30 p.m. And then here's a feature too that I love. Send the message in the contact's time zone. So if you're working across time zone, it will send it out in their own time zone too. Okay. All right.
I think before you move on, we touched on quite a few very important things here, right? First of all, let's think about the what we were talking about, the engagement strategy and how you're communicating with your candidates, your clients. What Rich mentioned earlier, if your marketing platform or your outbound communication platform is disjointed from your ATS in your database, that can create a lot of issues, right? Every time we have an element where there's an export of data that needs to be then imported somewhere else, for one, we're bound to have space for human error. And then the second part is we're not giving visibility to everyone that needs to see the performance of these engagement efforts. So it's not really accessible at a desktop level. It's really accessible more on whoever is responsible for that marketing strategy. But what Angela showed us earlier in terms of building up that criteria with the if this part, the automation enrollments, that's where you guys are able to build out your target audience. And if any person that is part of that target audience no longer qualifies for that specific automation for some reason, because of a change in a status or a field has been updated in Invenius, that person will automatically be removed from that list as well. So it's really ensuring that your target audience is tailored to who you want to engage with, and it's updating in real time. There is no export and import of data involved. Huge benefit for whoever's responsible for the marketing and communication strategy within your business. The other part is what Angela showed us at the beginning. which was the web tab, where we can see the engagement scores for those candidates, and we can see what automations they're part of, what lists they're part of. In the old way of doing things, this information wouldn't be accessible to a researcher, or it wouldn't be accessible to a partner in the business. It would only be accessible to the people who are sending out that communication. So giving them visibility on that will help them not only understand what is going on with the executives that they work with on the regular basis, what automations they're part of, what lists they're included in, but they can also start seeing what behavior they display based on that communication that is sent to them. If they open an email, if they go on the website and view a specific page, as Angela showed us, this is all extremely valuable information for the partner or the consultant that they can use to warm up these conversations with the executives, so they can have a more tailored conversation, a more tailored approach with them, all things that can help create a better candidate and client experience, right? All right,
Perfect.
Angela, we have quite a few questions. Did you want to show us anything else before we go into the Q&A?
The last thing that I wanted to talk about is here on the metrics. Now, they don't let me run live automation through here, because it would get a little crazy on there, especially with some of the fake candidates that are in there. But this is the last piece that I wanted to share with you too, is all of the data that's being collected behind all of this. So within our email stats, when you're sending these out, then the teams can go back in. Those of you that have marketing teams that are evaluating this information, what's working really well, what's not working really well, how many clicks have we got through, how many page views have come through. You know, if they're coming in and we're associating a certain job with that, for example, what's bouncing back. I'll give a little teaser. I know that Eric and Richard are going to answer some of these questions in the chat, but one of you asked about, hey, can we send out 2 different messages? So A/B testing. And the answer is yes. You can create 2 different messages. You can let those run at a certain threshold. When the top message takes over, then you can just let that one continue to run along there. So again, some of the tools that you probably know and love already that you're working with outside of Invenius today, many of those could be brought inside under one roof, so to speak.
Great. All right, let's answer some questions. The first one, if we have, let's see. If we have any questions after the session, so if you think of anything after this webinar is done, is there any point of contact that you can share to clarify our queries? Absolutely. Feel free to reach out to me, Rich, Angela, connect with us on LinkedIn. We're more than happy to help you out. If you're already an Invenius customer, reach out to your account manager directly so they can organize a tailored conversation that is specific to your business, and we can book you in for a demo as well. All right. Can the email outreach use a different email address than the users? So yes, you can. Whenever you are building your engagement strategy, and whenever you're creating the emails that you want to send out, you'll be able to control who that automation goes out on behalf of. So this could be the candidate owner, it could be the assignment owner, the submission owner, it could be the placement owner, right? Depending on the different scenario. But you can also use generic email addresses like newsletter@companyname.com. You're in full control as to who that communication is going to go out on behalf of, and if there is a response, who that response will go back to. Okay. Can we split the marketing campaign going out to 150 candidates through, let's say, 3 consultants? Yeah, so that goes back to the previous answer, right? You can segment who you want that communication to go out on behalf of. You can also do staggered starts. So this is an extremely beneficial approach, especially if you have a larger target audience. So you're not outbounding a very high volume of communication to maybe thousands of people at the same time. Doing staggered starts will help you be a lot better equipped to respond to those inbound communications as well. Because let's think about it, if you send a mass campaign to 5,000 people and suddenly you start receiving all that inbound traffic, it can get a little bit challenging to handle it from a bandwidth perspective. So staggered start is a great way for you to start in little chunks, equal ones, and start distributing that content out to your target audience. Angela, I believe you answered the one with alternate messages. We can do A and B testing, as Angela mentioned. So you can test out different email templates based on subject, based on content, to determine which one has a more successful impact on your target audience. And you can even determine which factor will determine the winner, whether it's the open rates, the click rates, or a page view rate as well. Another thing that you can do as well is within the same automation, what Angela mentioned earlier, is you can create branches. So if you have a large target audience, but you want to segment the content they're receiving based on additional criteria, you can very much leverage branches to start tailoring the content further for that major target audience. All right. What else do we have? Do we have a price point for this? Yes, we do. Reach out to your account manager. They will have a conversation with you. Very much depends on the size of the business and what you're looking for. So I had a question around how agencies, or if agencies, can use automation for D&I. So from a technical perspective, absolutely. You can build the survey engagements that Angela showed us earlier so that you can collect that information. From that point as well, from an admin perspective, you're in control as to whether you want that information to flow back in Invenius, if that's something that needs to be seen. Most cases, it really isn't. So keeping that information somewhere segmented from Invenius, meaning just in automation, is also something that you can do. So you can store the answers in automation only, and only the people who have access to that can actually see it. And even outside of that use case, we have many businesses, not only in executive search, but in recruitment as well, especially senior recruitment, leveraging surveys for market research. They build out surveys that they send out to their candidates, to their clients, so they can gather feedback on different topics and collect that feedback that they can then export and leverage to create content that they can distribute back through their target audience. So this is really a thought leadership exercise that we're seeing being used more and more. And leveraging automation is certainly a great way to do that, because you can automate all that outbound communication and you can have visibility on all those answers. For the data privacy module, yeah, sorry, go on.
Yeah, I was going to say that there's a question around the notification, the internal notification emails, whether they can choose the email address that those are sent out from.
Yes, you can. You can also specify the email address that will send that specific notification. You can also determine who that notification will go to. So you can go to the candidate owner again, you can go to the submission owner, assignment owner. You're in control depending on the different scenarios.
Yeah, sorry, I interrupted you. You're about to answer a question about the data privacy module and the sending of consent renewals. Yeah, that's a hard yes.
That is a very hard yes, absolutely. So this is one of the bigger challenges that we were talking about even in the previous webinar, is automating your GDPR requests and the tracking. You can absolutely do that. You can request consent based on certain criteria, so when consent is close to expire, or you can just use it to send acknowledgement emails as to we're storing your data for X, Y, and Z purposes. So whether it's to request or legitimate interest, you can use it for both. All right, so many questions. We're struggling to keep up.
Well, just jumping in here real quick again, Eric, just because this question's now come up a couple of times. I went in and pulled up, here's the email settings. You know, how often when this is internal should this be sent? And then just to show you too, that here's, you know, who it's to, and then who does it come from on there too. So again, that you've got that full capability of the to and the from, and then also when this is an external notification as well.
That is great. Thanks, Angela, for actually showing this as well. So not just talking around it. Perfect. Okay. Question: does Invenius automatically check for any upcoming consent expiration date? Yes, you can use that as a trigger point to request consent. Is the automation tool available on the desktop version? So the automation platform itself is accessible through a URL, so it's web-based. What you will have access on the desktop version is what we showed you at the beginning of the webinar, where every consultant or every user that opens up a person record will have that web tab on the right-hand side. The web tab shows you multiple criteria. That can be things like the engagement score, I will talk about the engagement score in a few seconds and what it actually means, but what automations they're part of, what actions they have taken off the back of automations, like what pages they viewed, what surveys they've completed, what emails they've clicked on, unsubscribes as well. Everything is visible, and that's visible on an end user level, which is the important part. So any consultant, any researcher will be able to access that information. Now, the engagement score really shows you how engaged or disengaged a person is with your business based on how they interact with the automated content that you send them. Every person that you add on Imbanias net new will start with an even score of 50, and that can go as high as 99 or drop as low as 0, depending on their engagement levels. So we are seeing a lot of people use the engagement score as additional criteria to further segment the content that they're sending out. So if the engagement scores are very low, that's an indication that we need to start putting these candidates or clients into a re-engagement campaign so we can start increasing the engagement levels and start rebuilding that relationship with them. If the engagement score is really high, then we can leverage that positive experience maybe to further promote our brand, send out an NPS survey because we have a higher confidence that we can get positive feedback, leverage that to get testimonials, reviews on online platforms, and so forth. So that's additional criteria that you can leverage as part of your marketing and communication strategy. Okay, Rich, you want to help me out here?
Yeah, there's a good question from
Which one do we
Steve.
answer next?
It says, if only admins can create automations, how would a normal user be impacted by this? And the follow-on to that question is, are they able to enable an admin to create automation for their use? Well, absolutely. As we said earlier in the call, you will have a relatively small number of people who actually have access to the automation tool and who can create the automations, but that doesn't prevent the entire firm from feeding into that process, from making suggestions, and also obviously from benefiting from that themselves individually.
What I would add to that as well is that we're seeing the businesses who are most successful in leveraging automation are the ones that have invested time in building an internal cross-functional team that is dedicated to the automation strategy. So this is where you're taking into key stakeholders internally, each responsible for different aspects of the business that they can feed back based on experience of the people that report to them, so that you can truly understand where the gaps and challenges are on every aspect of the business, not just one. So having that cross-functional team will help you not only at the beginning of your automation strategy, but in any future improvements that you're making to it so that you can truly get the most out of automation.
Great, thanks, Eric.
Does this work for Imbanias online web version? So anything that you're seeing today in terms of the data that is accessible for automation to see and write back to, that is your Imbanias database. It doesn't matter if you're using the web version as a standard or you're using the desktop, all that information syncs back and forth regardless. As far as accessing the automation platform itself, as I mentioned earlier, that's completely based on the web. It's a URL, you log in and you can build your automations from there. What you can access from the desktop is the automation engagement levels for each person. That's on a person record level, and it's on an end user level as well. All right, we have 2 more minutes. Rich, you want to find us another question?
Let me see. There are a couple of emails that reference of questions rather that reference spam and spam filters. So I wonder if we could just talk about how the email kind of part of this is set up and how that can avoid spam. So I know sorry, after you.
There are a number of best practices that you guys can implement internally to ensure that the content you are creating and you're sending out to your target audience doesn't end up being in spam, right? So this would be identifying the right people. It would be ensuring you're not sending out emails to maybe standardized email addresses where you just have an admin at company name or administration at company name or marketing at company name just for the sake of sending an email blast. So truly sending it out to known email addresses is a great step for you to avoid ending up in spam. But the way we work is we work with SendGrid. So whenever you are sending out that communication, it will go out through SendGrid on behalf of your email domains. So there are a lot of things that we do on the back end to support you so that you can send higher quality communication and it doesn't affect your domain
from a technical
registration.
perspective, you're covered.
From a technical perspective, you're
yeah.
covered. And during your implementation, during your usage of automation, there are resources in support and customer success that can guide you on best practices as well.
Right, thanks. Hopefully that answers those questions.
Does the solution have A/B split testing? Yes, absolutely. You can do A/B testing. We mentioned that earlier. So depending on the approach that you want to take, you can test out the 2 different emails based on the outcome, whether it's open rates, click rates, or specific page view rates to determine the winner. The remainder of the target audience will be sent to either email A or email B.
There's a question around email fields that we use. Obviously, we have more than one email field on records in Invenius. And the question is, I know that over the years, Invenius has added a few email fields. How does the system know which one to use?
That's a very good question. So this would be, I would say, out for scoping whenever we start having those individual conversations with you. So because everyone has customized Invenius to an extent to make it a little bit personalized to the way they want to work. So say reach out to your account manager. Let's have a one-on-one conversation to see what your current setup is, and based on that, we can help you go the right path. Let's put it that way, or use the right field.
But also, if you're building, say, an automation to allow candidates to update their email address, then you'll specify where that data is written back to. So if you're saving candidate email addresses in email 2, for example, that's where it's going to save it to, because you can specify that in the automation.
Correct.
Right. Well, I think we're pretty much at time.
All right. Well, lots of other questions that we weren't able to answer, but we will make sure to follow up with everyone after the session.
Indeed.
Guys, thank you very much for joining. This was great. We will be following up with everyone, as I mentioned earlier. And if you do have any questions, if you want to learn more, reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to support you, and we'll be more than happy to take you on a tailored demo as well.
Right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks all. I look forward
Thank
to seeing you
you.
automating very soon.